Yay! Welcome, Aston Simmons,
Thank you,
sister,
beautiful.
all the way from Perth. What's up, Perth?
Yep. It's a rainy day here today. I was just saying to Eva, it's cold and rainy, but it's nice. We're nice and cozy inside, and yeah, I'm excited to chat.
Yes, so excited. So Aston is a transformational relationship coach. Specifically, she works with people who want to save their marriages. Is that correct?
Yes.
Like save your
Yeah.
marriage.
So
Like that.
women and couples, we work with both because I also do this with my husband. Um, I'm sure we'll get to it because of our experience, what we went through in our own relationship. But yeah, working with women and couples to just really inspire them and empower them to recreate their relationship. So we've been in a long-term relationship for 18 years. We've been together and we've been married 8 years. And once we had kids, our relationship really started to change. And a lot of the advice out there was just like, this is what it's like. You've got married. Seriously, we couldn't believe it. This is what it's like. You've been married for a while. This was when we'd been married 6 years, I think. You've just had your second child. It's a lot. Just keep going and it'll get easier when the kids grow up. Like that was the advice we kept getting. And we were shocked, like really shocked, because we weren't in a good place. Like we'd never, ever questioned divorce before, ever. Never even crossed our minds. It is something that people throw around these days. Like it seems to be so much easier to just get a divorce, but that had never crossed our minds. So for us to get to that point where we were questioning it, we really needed some like tangible, helpful advice. And it wasn't, just what we found and what we were met with was this is normal. This is what it's like. And yeah, we were literally exactly your face. We both of us were just like, well, it's really bad now. We're not like there'll be no relationship to salvage in 20 years. Like, we wanted to start working on it before it was an absolute diabolical mess. It was already like excruciatingly uncomfortable at that point. Thank God we're not there now. We're on the other side. But I remember feeling like I can't reach my husband. What's happened? I can't reach him. I don't know how to connect to him. I know I still love him. I just don't know how to be in love with him. That was really the truth of the problem. And we were just kind of dealing with it on the surface. Like, you should be doing this, you should do more. I'm stressed with the kids, and I hear this from all the couples that we work with. Like, everybody gets stuck on the surface, of like, if he did more or she did more, we were blaming and shaming, like pointing the finger and just like going round and round and round. It was so draining. It was exhausting. Having a coaching background, sometimes in our arguments, I ended up like coaching my husband, like I was taking responsibility for his feelings, like it was just ridiculous. And I hear this from women a lot, that we're taking on like things that are not our stuff. I was definitely a bit of a people pleaser and a perfectionist, and I'd been applying that in my relationship, and this is how it was showing up. So so we had to go on a massive journey. It really took me to go first, and my husband was shocked actually when I said, I'm wondering whether we need to get a divorce. Like, we've got 2 young kids under 5. I did not want to pass down these generational patterns that we were repeating in our relationship. They were like my biggest why. I kept thinking, like, I'm well aware that we all form our blueprint for relationships and love before the age of 7. So I was well aware that my kids were watching us and soaking up that energy and starting to form blueprints. And that's what made me, really just say to my husband, like, I'm not going to do this to our kids or to me, like, or to you. Like, I love you too much to just stay in this toxic place and wait, for it to get better, when apparently the stress will disappear when the kids are older. which is just crazy because it just continues to evolve. And he agreed. He was like, actually, that feels really like truth. And so then from there, it was like, where do we go from here? And I just went on this massive journey of just trying to find examples and people and resources and tools of how to actually shift our relationship and the deeper stuff that was actually going on. There was a lot deeper stuff. It wasn't just like when I speak to couples and I ask them what's the problem, I hear the same things over and over again, like communication. They don't communicate, they're closed, or they're not connecting, or we're not intimate. We have these, like, I call them like love droughts, but all of those are just symptoms of stuff going on underneath, like core issues. So, a lot of us get stuck with the strategies like talk this way or communication is this. And, and I know this, Aoife, like, yes, we give communication strategies, but first we go deeper into like, what are your patterns? What patterns have you inherited? Like, we had both inherited patterns from our parents that we were playing out in our relationship. And that's why that cycle just kept repeating. So yeah, it took us down that journey. We had to do a lot of unlearning, a lot of practicing, a lot of trial and error. There was a messy middle where we were like, what are we doing? Like, it's tempting to go back to the old relationship, but we couldn't because we'd already seen too much that we needed to keep moving forward. And we didn't know if we would stay together. Honestly, when we started this journey, we had no idea. We just knew that, like, deep down inside, we had a desire to experience the truest experience of ourselves and each other. And so we just kept going. We just kept looking, kept practicing, kept learning. And then by the end of it, we actually realized we did love each other. And without all that other stuff, we could have a relationship that would work. But yeah, it was one hell of a journey. Oh my God. And when I got into it, I had no idea that all that pain was going to be part of my purpose. I was working with women on their relationships, but didn't realize that it would mean me going through that in my own relationship and then bringing my husband into like our courses and our trainings and things like that. That was never a plan I chose. It's like it chose me. So it's been an amazing journey and it's still evolving. It's always still growing. But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, how I ended up here, how I ended up doing this work. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. It's so close to my heart because I've gone through it. I think that's my point of difference. Like you've been in your client's shoes. You've really felt what it feels like to be in that place and to think and to just feel like, how do I get through? Like, and it almost looks like everybody else has got it together. Like, I'm sure, like, lots of people say this to me in their relationships. Like, it's almost taboo to say, like, you're having problems in your relationship. People feel like they're failing. There's a lot of shame and guilt and all of that around it. And that's what we found when we started speaking honestly about our relationship. People were like, oh, wow, like, it's really refreshing to hear you speak like that, really liberating to know, like, I'm not alone, because they haven't, everyone just says, I'm fine. Fine. How are you? Fine. How's your relationship? Fine. Because we don't know how to describe this like massive thing that has like so many emotions attached to it. So we just leave it at that. And then, yeah, I just had no idea the power of authentically sharing our stuff, and realizing that when you do, there's lots of other people out there who feel the same as you. Of course, you're not the only one. Whether it's issues in your relationship or issues with your self-esteem or issues with chronic pain or whatever it is, there's always somebody else. There's never just one of us going through something. But, our egos really want to do that, make us think it's only you. Like, of the billions of people in the world, it's only you. And
special case.
And I get that. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
this is just totally amazing. Some of the things you've already shared, I am like, you saw my face. I'm just like totally shocked. And I'm
Yes.
totally in awe of you that you just like had some part of you was like, this is not good enough. I don't care if everyone else is telling me that this is good enough. And I actually totally had the same experience with my health. People were like, everyone lives with pain. Just like shut it. And like, just like everyone has problems. And I was like, this is just not good enough. I don't care if you're all telling me this.
No.
But something I really want to dive into with you is like these patterns that you're talking about. Like, so just as you were talking, I'm like getting all these flashbacks of pretty much all the relationships I've been in.
Yes.
And I just know this like momming thing. I think I just like,
yes.
I just thought, and I would attract, I don't know what kind of guys I was attracting, but whatever, I would step into this role of like either like paying for things or fixing them, like attracting people who I perceived had like problems. I could be their fixer, their guide, their teacher, their coach, their therapist, their mom. Like what? Like,
oh my God.
What is
I
that?
was exactly the same. I was honestly exactly the same. And when I realized that pattern, it was like so frightening. I was like, how did I get here? Like, you know, and so I had to look back, and, you know, a lot of women, it's been passed down generationally, you know, this expectation to care and look after. And it actually dates back to like the wars, World War I and II, when that's when it kind of started, because men were coming back from war and they were shell shocked. They had PTSD, like they had the stuff they'd seen had mentally and emotionally changed them. So they went from men doing all these physical things and providing for the family to coming back and not being able to do that. So women then stepped up and they started
nurses. Like they must have.
Yep, they just did everything. Literally, it went from looking after the kids to nursing them to looking after them to working. Like they just were like took on more and more and more. And it was a pattern that we then, our generations continued. And then it became more about like proving that, you know, if he can do that, I can do it too. And I can do it the same way he does, rather than doing it in our own way, you know. And then, then just this controlling and need to control everything to try and keep ourselves safe. When in actual fact, the truth of controlling is if you need to control that amount, then you don't trust, you're not safe. And that's what I had to realize. I was like, okay, actually, the truth is I'm not trusting my partner. I'm not trusting my husband. I thought I did, you know, but I didn't, because I was mumming him. I hear this from women all of the time, the women that I work with. They're taking responsibility for everything. Like, especially when they have kids, it goes to another level. Like, you know, they can't accept like even little things like doing the kids' lunches for lunch. Oh, he cuts the sandwich the wrong way. You know, I have, you know, it's got to be done this way. And until you speak that out and really look at it, and like, I know you know this, Aoife, you find it, this pattern in one area of your life and it shows up everywhere. So, you know, they think it's just cutting up the sandwich, but it's not. It shows in how they run the house, how they pay the bills, how they manage the kids, like how they manage work. And then they realize that they're doing everything. And this was me. I had to like see this pattern everywhere. And I was like, I'm not allowing my husband to actually be a man. I kept stealing his man card. I kept basically wanting to be the woman and the man at the same time, you know. And men, if we look like we're doing it, they just leave us be. Women can't believe this. They're like, can't he see me doing everything? Doesn't he just see me doing everything and want to help me? And I'm like, no, he sees you doing everything and you making it look easy and you're fine. And so he goes, she doesn't need me. She doesn't need me to do it. She's doing it. You know, men are that simple. It is that black and white. They're so factual. Like, unless you show them and like demonstrate, I need help, I'd love some help, they're not going to, you know, especially if you've been taking so much responsibility and being like such a mum, like I was, like, because I'd done that for so long. When we had kids, it, you know, I just physically couldn't do it anymore, you know, especially when we had Willow, our second. um I just physically couldn't, like emotionally, energetically, physically. I was exhausted and like burnt out and overwhelmed, just trying to hold all the pieces together. But I had to face the facts that no one told me to do that. No, Adam had never said to me, you need to hold responsibility for everybody and everyone. You need to do everything. I'd put that on my own shoulders. That was a pattern I had wired myself with through conditioning and watching role models. But I was doing that to myself. So I had to really take back my power and see that pattern and decide to break up with it, because it was so destructive to me, to my health, to our relationship, because then I resented him. You know, I'd do all the things and then I would feel resentful, irritated, frustrated. And that just kept eating away at our relationship. Um, and he just felt like it was eating away at, like he didn't feel needed. He didn't feel needed in the relationship when I was doing that, taking response. You know, I mean, he liked being looked after. Like when we broke up with this pattern, he openly was like, oh, I'm losing something here. Like he realized just how much I was doing. And he was like, I mean, it's good. He was like, I know we need to break this pattern, but it really does suck for me. Like, I was like, yeah, it did at that point, because he finally saw just how much I was doing for him when I just stopped doing it. And not from a place of like nastiness. We had a really conscious conversation about it, and we wanted deeper connection and communication and love and intimacy. And we knew this was getting in the way, you know, because you can't just mum in one area, you end up mumming everything. So I had to break up with the mumming in total, like completely. I'm not here to take responsibility for you. You're your own person. Yes, we're in a relationship, but you get to take responsibility for you, and I get to take responsibility for me. And that's the most loving thing we can do in a relationship. You know, we met very young. We were teenagers when we met. So we naturally started to form these codependencies, and that's what happens when you know, you're in a relationship like this. And but it's just great to bring awareness to those patterns. And now Adam does take full responsibility. He does heaps of things around the house with the kids, and I feel so much lighter. And this is what I love hearing from women, because initially when I tell them this, they're like, oh no, if I stop doing everything, it's going to fall apart. Like it's all going to fall apart. Nothing's going to get done. If I don't do it, no one's going to do it. You know, all those stories that keep that pattern stuck. And I go there with them. I let them feel everything. They face it. And then it's like, well, is that the truth? And when they really breathe into their heart, they're like, of course it's not. Of course that's not the truth. I'm just really scared of letting go of this. So I'm like, okay, well, we've got to let it go. We've got to put it down. I mean, you can always go back to that old pattern. You know that pattern so easily. So you can go back, but let's just put it down and see what happens. And when they do, they're amazed at how much more energy, how much freer, how much lighter they feel. It's so much easier to be in your feminine and in your body when you're not controlling everybody and taking responsibility for everybody. It's crazy. And they literally, this one woman said to me, I was like a one woman resentful, like a one woman show full of resentment. That's how she described it. And now I feel like we're working as a team, and I feel lighter. I feel more supported. And that's exactly how it felt for me. I went from feeling like a one woman show to actually being able to receive support in. Because when you are mummying everybody, you can't receive support in. You know, like for me, it literally felt like I was putting my family on my back and dragging them up the mountain. That's the weight that I felt on my shoulders and in my body when I was doing this. And it was so exhausting. It was so draining. And there was just, it killed any love or intimacy or attraction with my husband. It just totally killed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, it's just the least sexy you'd ever feel. I'm sure, just like that level of stress. And I'm not a mother, I'm not in a relationship, but I know that level of stress and burnout. And when when I've been at my worst and in total burnout and really sick and my nervous system is lit up and I'm resenting everyone, right? I'm not in an intimate relationship, but I'm resenting my past partners, I'm resenting my family, I'm
Yes.
resenting all my friends, like anyone I was in relationship with, actually,
Yep.
resenting everyone. And so my nervous system's lit up and on fire, chronic stress, and I don't have any oxytocin. So even if you were in my face, loving me so hard, giving me all the support beyond my wildest dreams, I couldn't actually feel it. I couldn't sense
Couldn't
it. I
feel
was
it.
blind to it. You may as well have just been like invisible, right?
Yes.
So yeah, just that level, and of course it's going to affect your health. That's
Yes,
like health and
100%.
relationship issues are just not two separate things. And for me,
Yeah.
my biggest driving force was my health, but
Yes.
very soon I realized relationship with
Yep.
myself, all these patterns as well. And actually
100%.
another pattern that was huge for me and is for my clients is this, like, just not meeting your own needs thing.
Oh,
And
God.
so
Yes.
actually how I ended up so burnt out and so sick is like I never learned how to take care of myself. I never learned I was worthy enough to have needs,
Yes.
to speak up about my needs, and on all kinds of different levels. So I would get so burnt out not meeting my needs that my body got sick. And
Yes.
and then through being sick, I would get some kind of love and I would get some kind of
Yes.
movement. So it just became the only way for me to survive. Just
Yes.
about surviving was like being sick.
And
So
it builds that pattern of pain is love, you know, and so many people have that pattern, you know, whether it's through physical health or the way you were raised as a child, you know, like the blueprint you saw of what love is or how it was shown. You know, I always say to people, you know, I'm a parent now, so I get it. I get our parents are doing the best they can do with what they know. When we know better, we do better. Like there's no need to be angry, blame, or shame. I don't have any of that at all. I really encourage my clients not even to go there, because forgiveness will set you free. And if you heal yourself, then you can heal your parents going back and your children going forward. So you can be that light. You can be the bridge that goes, you know, I'm going to put the healing, I'm going to be the light that helps that healing go both ways. And I'm well aware that I'll pass on different patterns to my kids because I'm not perfect. I'm human, but I want them to be breaking different patterns. We want to keep evolving and not just repeating the same things over and over again, because otherwise we're not evolving. Like the whole thing is that we need to evolve and, you know, be working through different things. But that thing of meeting needs is massive. And that problem was actually in our relationship. And I see it in all couples actually that we work with, this inability of, even in the beginning, knowing what their needs are. You know, because at kids, as children or as they were growing up, they were completely dismissed. So a lot of us, if our own needs were dismissed as a child, we then think we can't have them, basically. And so we become adults and we don't know how to meet them. We don't even know what they are. Or if we see our own parents neglect their needs, which is what a lot of women see, their mothers, you know, doing everything for everybody, not looking after themselves, not taking any time for self-care. It sounds crazy, but we don't need to tell each other, take care of yourself. We need to show each other how we do it. And that's, for me, once I had a daughter, I was like, it just was another spiritual initiation for me. And I was like, I need to show her that she is worthy of being looked after and she needs to put herself first. So that means I have to do that. And I had never done that before. This was a totally new thing for me but she was my why. I was like, when I looked at her, I could see my little girl. I could see myself in her, you know, and I was like, I'm going to heal myself and I'm going to pass on this healing. I'm going to show her me reading a book, drinking a hot coffee, you know, or a hot cup of tea, laying in the sun, you know, sleeping in if I need to sleep in, you know, painting my nails. I barely saw those things in the women around me growing up. And that will be lots of women. So that's why sometimes self-care can seem so hard, or meeting your own needs can seem so hard, because you haven't seen anybody do it. You haven't been grown up with it. I was almost grown up with hearing it as if it was selfish. And I hear this from so many women,
Well,
that you're
yeah,
selfish
actually,
if you have time to yourself,
yes,
especially if you're a mum. You're almost rewarded for being selfless,
you are.
which is
True.
terrible,
It's
because
huge. Yeah.
for mothers, that's the last thing they need. Like, mothers need to look after themselves. I had to switch my relationship to meeting my needs. I had to change my association to it. So, and I share this with clients because it helps them make the shift, that when I meet my own needs, then I naturally can meet the needs of the relationship. And then I can naturally meet the needs of my children. But when I start with my children first, which is what I was doing when I became a mum, I'm already empty. So I'm reacting to them because my needs aren't met. So I can't meet theirs. So it's like a backwards. Most of us have the equation backwards. We think, if I meet my kids' needs, then my husband's needs, then I do my work, and then I do my friends, then I'll come to me. Well, by the time you come to you, there's nothing. You don't have any time. The day's over. There's no energy, and you're resentful. And all that giving you did, you now are like, you hate those people, and they're
So
feeling that energy. You know what I mean? So it's like, why did you bother doing the thing on the surface if you were just going to pollute them with your energy? Like, no point. So I'm like, reverse it. Start with you. Do that one little thing. Like, I like to call it like soul nourishment. That feels deeper to me than self-care. So I like ask myself, like, what is going to nourish my soul in this moment? How can I make this moment more soul nourishing? Can I eat my lunch outside? Can I, when I'm getting dressed in the morning, can I listen to music and dance? How can I bring it into more moments all throughout my day? So I feel like I'm always choosing me first and meeting my needs, and then I can meet everybody else's needs. Most women at the core are so loving and giving and nurturing, and they want to just like give this love, and it's beautiful, but not when we're not full. Like, when you're empty, you have nothing to give. So I'm like, get to overflow, fill yourself up in every moment. And know that when you do that, you're able to give more to your husband, to your children, to your life, to your business, to your work. My husband always comments when he sees me filling myself up, makes him so happy. Like, he like, if he sees me in the sun or reading or painting my nails, he has this look that comes out, like he walks past and this look that comes over his face, and he's like, he literally says, I love seeing you nourishing yourself. I love seeing you fill up, because then I'm radiant. I don't have to try to be beautiful or try to be radiant. I don't need to get my eyelashes stuck on or my eyebrows, I don't need to do any of that. When I fill up, he looks at me and he's like, she's so radiant. She's so beautiful, because I'm filling myself up. It blew my mind when I really started to practice this, because in the beginning I was just so depleted. Like, I was just like how you said in the beginning, I was so empty. I had no idea how to receive. I was really good at giving. I just had no idea how to receive support in. I was always the strong, independent woman, giving, doing it all on my own. So this thing of receiving felt so foreign initially. And initially it did feel uncomfortable. Like, I had to lock myself outside. I remember locking myself outside a couple of times so that I had to, like, I couldn't clean or I couldn't do things inside, because I'd become that addicted to doing that. The being was like really hard. It was really hard for me to just be and give to myself. And not have an ulterior like reason attached to my husband or my children or work or whatever, for just for me to just, I'm worthy of my own time. I'm worthy of my own love. And I don't need a justification. It still brings tears to my eyes. And when I share this with women, they feel it too. It's like a energy of like acknowledging I matter. I see me. you know. And when you see yourself, when you understand yourself, when you listen to yourself, when you acknowledge that you matter, it's incredible the ripple effect that has on everyone around you. My husband just changed the way he responded to me, and the way we were in relationship when I changed the way I was in relationship with myself. You know, it really started from that place. And then so did my kids. There was this newfound like love and respect for me in the time I needed. Um, and seeing my kids see that shift after we were in that horrible place of just, you know, only talking about the surface, the bills, the, you know, no love, no, just it's horrible. In this is where like your home can feel like a prison. Like I really feel for couples that get to that place. You know, sometimes it's not even like we weren't physically abusive or verbally, you know, that's definitely not you know, if you're in that situation, you need to get out of that situation. So we weren't at that point, but just the toxic energy of just looking at each other like enemies, you know, not acknowledging each other's needs, almost like we were keeping score, you know, like, oh, you had this amount of time by yourself. Now I need this time. Or, and I hear this from couples all the time, like, well, you know, my needs aren't getting met. So why should his? As if like it's this trade off or this only one person can win. But it doesn't have to be like that. When you go through a process and you come back to yourself, you look at your patterns, you start to meet your own needs, change your relationship with yourself, you want to give that then to your partner. It's like a natural, you know, I didn't have to convince myself to let my husband meet his own needs. Like I wanted him to. It's like, I feel like it's on a soul level. You know, we see each other as another soul, you know, or another human being just trying to figure out this crazy life, you know. And we're like, wow, I've got needs, you've got needs. Like we both, it's our birthright for both of us to meet our own needs. And the more we do that, the more we can meet the needs of our life, our relationship, our kids, like all of these things. But meeting our needs is really the first step, and that it's okay. And it's actually essential. It's not a luxury, it's essential. You know, otherwise we can't live our lives. We have no energy, we have no love to actually create, to give, to share. You know, it's crazy. We've had it backwards for so long, I think, and just got addicted with the doing and the pushing and the forcing. And as women, like, you know, like I do, we can't, that's not sustainable. Our bodies eventually get to that point where they show us. Like I started losing my hair. I know lots of women get, you know, pain in their feminine organs. You know, things show up where their body's like screaming, like, I'm not made for this. Like, you know, even men, you know, men need to break through, but they still, if they're not meeting their needs and they're constantly breaking through, they will still burn out. They'll still feel the repercussions of that. And that's what so many of us have really got just caught in that rat race of just doing the dopamine, chasing the things, you know, and it runs out and it's not sustainable. And our bodies are telling us, you know, they're like, come back to your body. You know, if you're feeling pain in your body, I was feeling pain in my body, had always felt like pressure on my shoulders. And it's because I just was like from my head all the time, just like try to go and work it all out and make it make sense. And I always say to people, like, honestly, I mean, I think it applies to life, but truly with relationships, your heart and your emotions rule. You know, you are never going to make sense of a relationship logically. Your mind will always get you into trouble in your relationships because it will plan out every step. It will make you close. It won't allow you to let somebody in because it's needing to protect, you know, and keep you safe. You cannot have a relationship just from the head. It doesn't, there's no connection. You have to engage the heart. You have to get in your body. And this was one of the biggest challenges we had in our relationship. I'm very connected to my heart, very open. I've done a lot of healing work to really loosen all of that stuff around my heart. Whereas my husband, the way he was raised was really like, if you let anyone in, they're going to hurt you, and so many people have this, like they have masks or armor, not physically, but they do. When I say to women, like, what armor are you wearing? Or what mask have you got on? Or have you got ice around your heart? Like instantly they feel it and they're like, how do you know? And it's like, well, energetically, we can feel it and our partners can feel it. When we go into that relationship and all that conversation and we're closed, they feel it straight away. And what happens when one of us closes? The other one closes. So we get stuck in this pattern of not being able to solve problems, not being able to get on the same page, because really both our hearts are closed. We're both protecting, and then we can't connect, and that was a big thing that we had to learn to break through in our relationship. My husband really had a lot of armor and he has worked through so much of it, and it's still an ongoing process for him, but he's like unrecognizable from the beginning to now. Like it's incredible. And we hear from a lot of couples that we work with, that's one of the biggest things. Like we actually ask them, in your relationship, like how much are you showing up from your mind and how much are you showing up from your heart? Just check, just score it out of 10, 1 being like not at all, 10 being 100%. Most of them, when they come in, it's like, oh, wow, I don't even know if I'm a 3. And some of those people are like men and women who are like, I thought I was an open person. I thought I was heart-centered. But when it comes to my relationship, I'm actually operating from my mind. I'm not being loving. I'm not opening. I'm not being willing to see their perspective. I'm stuck and I'm protecting, putting up walls, like needing to be right, like this desire and need to be right and win. That is really prevalent when you're in your head and in your ego and you've like sided with your ego. And if you do that in your relationship, it just eventually the other partner it gets old. You start to feel like, okay, you're never going to want to do my ideas. Like your ideas are always better. I'm not like, this is like it's a one-sided relationship when you get to that place, where you have to be right. And so many women have that, this out of this need to be, out of this need to be like seen and understood and heard, it then kind of gets turned into like, well, I need to be right. And I had this was a pattern I had to break up with. I was very critical and needing to be right and prove my point and always like fight for my point. And I really had to look at that and, see the ugliness of it, really face myself and realize that's not love. That's not unconditional love. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with that. And really ask myself, what am I fighting for?
I totally
what am I actually fighting for?
I totally just getting memories of like, just like, like I was right. But in that moment, you don't feel love. That's not what you're feeling. It's like actually it's really, very lonely.
Yes.
To be like, I'm right.
But it's like, because I had a woman who had this, it's such a common pattern, a woman who went through this pattern. And I remember asking her, what is love about for you? And she literally said, oh, I've realized it's about winning and being right. And I was like, yep, that's powerful breakthrough you've just had there. That's amazing. And I was like, so what happens if you don't what happens if you're not right? What happens if you don't win? Because you have a need to meet there. So, and we're driven, like we're wired to meet our needs. So I said, what happens if you don't? And she said, well, then I'm not enough. So that's why that pattern kept continuing. I'm not good enough if I'm not right. I'm not good enough if I don't win. So that's why she had to continue to meet that. And I said, okay, so how do you really feel when you win and you're right in your relationship? And she said, well, initially it's like I've got the trophy, but then like straight away I'm embarrassed. I'm I feel alone, like you said. I feel like a horrible person, and it doesn't feel warm and fuzzy. It doesn't
Mm.
feel like I'm loved, but apparently I've won. And I was like, well, there you go. Now you get to decide. You've seen the truth of this pattern and why you keep playing into it. And what do you really want? She's like, I want love and connection,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, what do you need to let go of? She's like, I need to let go of being right. I need to let go of winning, and I need to choose love and connection because I am enough. You know, for her, it was to shift from like needing to be right and win to prove I'm good enough. But what if you're already enough? You know, what if you know that? What if you know that your birthright is to love and be loved? And when you give love, you receive love. What if that's winning? You know, and
Honestly, like
yeah,
I feel like when I look back on my relationships that I was so in that place of
yeah,
being right in my head, burnt out, resenting, giving, not receiving, no
yeah,
oxytocin, not in the warm, fuzzy heart connection, that it would always come to a point where I would like blame the other person for not loving me. And that I also
yes,
had this story that they didn't know me. You don't know
yeah,
me, you don't love me. I had partners say, like, I love you. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, I was so disconnected. I didn't even know what love felt. I couldn't,
yes.
like, I just couldn't even connect to the feeling of love. So my
Mm,
mind made up all these different stories about that person, about our relationship. Maybe I analyzed it even through therapy, lots of
yeah,
stories, lots of thinking. But like honestly, like when I'm starting to reflect back over those relationships, I see them so differently. Like I actually
yeah,
see how that person was showing up for me and I just couldn't even feel.
yes,
It's
yeah.
crazy, it is
And
wild.
it's amazing because we literally, especially, I really feel like our relationships are the greatest spiritual journey because they just mirror everything, and especially intimate relationships, because like with a partner or with children, they're there right in front of you. Like you can't run away from it. You can try and blame them, but it just keeps like bouncing back and coming at you. You know, to a point where you eventually have to go, okay, what, like what's the message in this, or what's the lesson in this? Like this keeps repeating. um and it's like what I had to learn, and what I think the biggest thing in all of those situations is when you want to close, open. When you want to close, open. And I literally have to engage my body. Like I have to like pull my shoulders back, command my body. I am going to open to this moment. I'm acknowledging that my heart is wanting to close right now. And we have an energy field around our heart. I know you know this, Aoife, and it will literally close and open like a valve, depending on whether you're commanding it to close or open. So I have to literally push against that, tell my body, command, I feel like closing right now, but I am choosing to open. I am choosing to open to this moment. I'm choosing to open to this man. I'm choosing to open to this lesson. And something happens in your body in that moment. You go from feeling like you're closing and your body shutting down or wanting to blame or fight back to opening. And then the next part is I tell myself, I'm going to soften. I'm going to soften into this moment. I'm going to soften to this person. I'm going to feel it, whatever this thing is. I'm going to let them in to my heart. I'm going to let them in. I'm going to let this situation, even though it's painful, and I'm going to soften to it instead of being so hard and, you know, and just bitter and angry and push it, like trying to push it away. I actually let it
Mm.
in. It's the
Actually,
opposite.
I think maybe there was like two ways that I would love or understood love. And one was this like hardened, I'm right, mommying,
Yes.
minding person. And then the other version was the only way I get cared for is if I'm like distraught, upset, like
Yeah.
sick. And I see this actually in my clients. So their partners, they often have really beautiful, loving partners, but the partners take care of them because they have these
Yes.
health problems. And then when they start to transform their health problems because they're transforming their relationship with themselves, then like you shared earlier, actually the partner starts to freak out a bit, like I'm not
Yep.
needed anymore.
Yes.
And then it's really beautiful. They go through this process of then inviting in a new love, a new way that their partner
Yes.
that their male partner, because I work with women, can be there for them. And
Yes.
one of my clients shared once that she noticed then that like it was like, she told this story, it was like when her, yeah, she wanted to connect to her partner, but she didn't know how to connect with her partner now, because he had been, the whole story had been around the chronic pain. And it's
Yes.
like this kind of messy middle ground that you shared
Yes.
earlier.
And oh
And
my
you're
God.
scrambling around looking for like, how do I get love now? How do I
Yes.
connect now? But you know what the old version is, because you can see it. You're like, I could
Yes.
just like put out my back right now, and I could
Yes.
like literally, or I could have a tantrum and get love that way, but I know how that feels, and I don't want to feel like that
Yes.
anymore. So like, what's new here? What's new here? And then being willing to soften and open in that moment.
Yeah.
That is really, that's how I find, I'm like,
It is.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, I just don't
It's
want to go
like,
back. I know what it means to be right, to be hardened, to be cold, to
yes.
not feel love. And I'm just like, what else is there, what else, like,
Yeah.
and then
And
there's always a moment like you shared, it's
there
like a
is.
warm fuzzy moment, or the other person shows their like remorse or their connection in a new way,
Yes.
and then you're
Yeah.
open to that, and it's just like this new dance is whatever it is,
100%.
wherever it's going, it's so much better for my body, for my cortisol, for my stress, for my health. I'm just like,
100%. But you're right. I talk about the messy middle because I think like Disney screwed us. Like Disney films, like even films today, like they completely screwed us. Like I didn't watch a lot as a kid. But we all saw it and it got into our subconscious. And then we get into our relationships and we're like, oh, this doesn't look, like this isn't like a straight line. This isn't from I healed my whatever it is, I healed my chronic pain. And then now our relationship is like Hollywood and it's amazing. And like we have incredible sex and, like it doesn't go like that. Just there and then there. There is this messy middle. And that's okay. That's what growth actually is. Growth actually looks like this, or a bit sideways. It's not like a straight line. But because we don't really talk about it, it's not really shown in movies and things in your relationship. I know we did as well. We had these messy middles and we still have them every time we rebirth our relationship. And this is what we realized. We have to keep recreating our relationships. We have to keep rebirthing our relationships because things happen. Like you get over a sickness or an illness, or you have a really tragic, hard thing happen, like losing a child, or you get married, or you get divorced and then start another relationship. Like there's always these things that are evolving and transpiring in our lives. So of course our relationship has to change. You don't stay the same person and then experience a different love or experience a different relationship. So if you don't, then your relationship doesn't either. It has to evolve and change. And it is a bit challenging in those times where it's that messy middle where you feel like you're losing something and your ego literally tells you you're losing something. Somebody's dying, it's like it's like holding on and it like doesn't like it. But it's like in that moment, kind of reparenting yourself and letting your ego go, no, like, yeah, I know, but it's okay. We're safe. We're evolving. Like a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. We're just in that messy middle of working out how this is going to look now. And what helps me is getting curious. Just like you said, just like get really curious about what could this be? What could this be? How could this look?
I like to focus
What?
on, and I know like this as well, but like how is it gonna feel? Because I'm like, I haven't
Yes.
seen this demonstrated maybe so much by the people around me, and this goes for like health, wealth, business, like just
Yes.
anything.
Anything. Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know. And like, I've had so many coaches teach me, like, just let go of the how
Yes.
and
Just
let go of
focus
the
on the feeling.
details and just like, how do you want
Yes.
to feel? And it's come up a few times for me recently where I've like navigated different relationships, and I just know how I want to feel more.
Yes.
That kind of keeps me going and looking for new ways to relate
And
and new
that's a
ways to do
vibration.
things.
That's an energy that can then attract you more of what you want to feel. But just being open for it to evolve and being able to soften into what it could be. And I like to be really vulnerable. You know, vulnerability helps so much in those moments. It's really courageous and powerful. Like when we were going through that transition, and we have to work on this a lot with women because they're terrified of vulnerability. They're literally like, but how do I be vulnerable? Like, how is it okay? And I'm like, it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, and there is so much power in vulnerability. When I started to open more vulnerably to my partner, I have never felt more connected and more seen, but at the same time, not needed his validation.
Mm,
It was a beautiful thing. Like when we were going through this process, and even now, when something comes up, I can express my truth from a place of vulnerability. I might have tears, I might feel things, but I don't need him to reassure me or validate me because I'm comfortable with my vulnerability. I'm as I'm processing, as it's coming out, I'm like honoring my needs.
mm,
I'm honoring expressing myself. Like everybody's soul needs to be expressed, everybody's truth wants to be expressed. And in the beginning, I needed his validation. And don't get me wrong, we all love validation. It's so good for our souls to be like, it's okay to feel the way you feel. And I think it's great to validate and honor each other's feelings and not judge it or blame it. And my husband does validate it and reassure it, but it's incredibly empowering to be in your vulnerability and to be okay with it. You know,
mm.
it's really, really empowering, and to be able to speak your truth. And when you're in your vulnerability, you're actually able to show how you feel rather than tell. Um, and from this deeper place of this is how I'm feeling. And there's more, for me, I really feel there's more of a taking responsibility when you're able to be vulnerable. Um, you know,
This
you're
really,
really owning it, you
yeah,
know.
this really resonates with me actually, because I realized only a few years ago that I had never been vulnerable, that I had so many
Mm,
walls up, like icy walls and so much protection. And then I was like, right, I'm going to be vulnerable. But I wasn't able to like really hold that space and honor and really respect myself and my
yes.
emotions and my vulnerability. So I was like, okay, I'll just dive into getting vulnerable with this like dude I don't know very well. We've had
Yes.
sex or whatever. And then it was so messy. And then I was like, oh my God, that's just a disaster. Don't
Yes.
ever do that again.
Yes.
You
So
know
you
what I'm
pretty much,
saying?
yeah, you like punished yourself into vulnerability. So,
Exactly.
and so many women do this, like they set themselves up for failure almost, you know, like throw themselves under the bus. I'm like gentle persistence with vulnerability is what I feel is the most respectful or loving way to do it with yourself. Make sure it's someone you feel safe with, 100%. You don't, you know, I started with people I felt safe with, and now I can be vulnerable with anyone because I don't need them to be a certain way. I know that I'm centered in my vulnerability and I've got myself in my vulnerability, but it has taken time to do that and feel comfortable in it. And like in a relationship setting with my husband, even though we'd been together for ages, I hadn't been vulnerable for a lot of that. So when I started to practice it, I actually had to speak out to him and say, this is really awkward for me right now. This I'm just going to call it out. This is really uncomfortable. Normally I would close right now or blame or shame, but I'm opening and I'm softening and some stuff's coming up and I don't even really know what to say to you, but I'm just this is where I'm at. I'm processing this now in front of you and I just want to let you know because I'm working through it and I don't really know what it is. And he really appreciated that level of vulnerability and like awkwardness and just truth of what I was going through, rather than me trying to pretend or be a certain way. Or, you know, some women, it ends up being like projection. They're like, oh, I know how to be vulnerable. I'm a really emotional person. And I'm like, no, that's not vulnerability. I used to think that too. I could feel everything. I could go from anger to rage to sadness to grief, and I can just put all those emotions out. But that's not vulnerability. You know, vulnerability isn't just throwing your emotions at another person and expecting them to deal with it. It's actually you owning your feelings in yourself, you processing it, and not, and like I said, not actually needing their validation, but feeling safe and centered to be witnessed in it, because you're expressing yourself and you're honoring that, you're respecting that in yourself. And because you're doing that for you, they then feel that back. You know, now whenever I'm expressing my truth like that, like my husband, he's really inspired by it. He, you know, it invites him into his vulnerability when I go into my vulnerability, and he's able to speak his truth more, which is something he's had to really learn how to do. And it will bring up emotion, but not like emotion, you know, that like it tends to not really be floods of tears. Like some women will say to me, well, I don't want to cry. And I'm like, it's not always crying. You know, it's not until you start to practice it, you realize it's vulnerability can be really subtle. But it's very centered and it's very powerful. And in a relationship sense, when you can take down those walls and really express that vulnerability, it creates intimacy, just this natural energy, intimacy, and connection, because you're exposing intimate parts of yourself, but you're okay with it because you're the one exposing it. So you don't feel exposed, if that makes sense. And that has been a huge shift in our relationship dynamic and has definitely helped us see each other on a deeper level than just that surface, you know, of like husband, wife, parents, all of those labels that we have. It's just really allowed us to go deeper into like, who am I really? And who are you really? And that's exciting, because if you're in a long-term relationship, you've got to stay curious. You've got to want to know this person you're with really deeply, intimately. You know, you want to keep getting curious about knowing yourself more intimately and them. And, you know, after 18 years, we still feel like that. I'm still learning things about Adam that I didn't know, because I believe I will never know everything about him. You know, so many couples, I have to help them shift that pattern or that belief that's like, it's not a fact that you know everything about this person. How can you? You're not them. So of course you don't know everything about them. And by thinking you do know everything about them, you keep them stuck as they are, and then they can't grow, they can't evolve, they can't change, you know, and we know that's no good for us, you know, so why would we do that to our partners? So it's so beautiful to stay curious, to want to seek to understand. That's how I really like to be in my relationship, seeking to understand before I'm, you know, demanding to be understood. And the old me 100% demanded to be understood, 100%. And it just got me nowhere.
That's so powerful. I've actually been through this with one of my clients. She is a single mom with teenagers. And she had that thing, she thought like she knew that the description was really solid, and she's just been on the most incredible journey. It's just been so inspiring to be part of. And the teenager, you know, didn't want to spend any time with her or whatever, and has gotten into trouble. But now, since her softening and not doing, like you said, she's like, I'm just not doing, I'm being in the garden, I'm just like you said, I'm sunning myself, I'm relaxing. And then the
increasing that oxytocin, like,
and her teenage son comes to her and asks her if she wants to hang out for the day. And he's like, I
love that.
Oh, like, what doesn't your heart? And then they have an ice bucket challenge in the garden. He's like, Mom, do you want to have an ice bucket challenge? They have a water fight. This kid, they've been like, you know, at whatever. tension in
It's
their
so
relationship
special.
is so
It's so
special.
powerful, and it's so healing. Like, I have a son, so I know what that feels like. Mothers teach their sons what love is. We also teach our daughters, but it's a lot on the mother. And I feel this for single mums, because it's a huge pillar that they have to hold, and a lot of single mums get pulled into or pushed into thinking they need to be in the masculine, because they need to be it all, like, I'm the mum, the dad, you know, and I get it. Like, the physical conditions around it makes you think that that's the answer, but it's not. There's so much power in your being, and like, especially boys and young men, they need to learn love from their mum, and a love that's like open, that's there is a softening, that they can be. And it's so beautiful, and that's what boys need. I know for my son, every night at night when I put him to bed, I lay with him in my arms, and always, every night, just with my energy, my intention is to just be there with him, just be there as he falls asleep. He doesn't love going to sleep. He hasn't, like, his whole life. He's full of energy. He's got FOMO, huge fear of missing out. Love him. He's a firecracker, full of energy. And so I just lay there with him. I don't try and like rush him to sleep or anything like that. And this incredible thing happens every night. He will just start, I don't ask him a question. He will just start telling me all this stuff, of like things that have bothered him from the day, or something that happened at school. I don't need to pull it out of him. I just need to create the safe space for him to know that I'm here. I'm going to listen. I'm going to hold you in it. And I'm just going to soften and be here. And he doesn't even need answers from me. Just that in itself is so healing. And, he's 5, and that still happens. And it's something I cherish and I love, and I'm really proud of as a mum, that I don't have to like do the whole, like, how are you? How was school? What was, da, da, da. Like, I don't have to question him, because I know he feels safe with me. And when I create that space, he tells me, he invites me in. And I get to see really the truth of what's going on. And this is the same in our relationships. We forget to create safety. The way to overcome these barriers and these challenges and these differences in men and women and all these things that get in the way, or these patterns, is create a safe space. Like, be a listening ear. Just hold your partner in whatever it is, and you can do that with loving boundaries. It doesn't mean like, you have to be a doormat and let them walk all over you. That's definitely not what I do. But, I hold a space that keeps me safe and them, but I am open to listening, not taking on their problems, but listening. I'm open to being an ear so that you can process what you need to process.
Oh my
and most
God.
of the time,
This is reminding me of your 5-day challenge. And one of the things that I did love from that was when you and Adam shared about how the different energies of masculine and feminine, how you like hold space for each other. And Adam was saying that as his masculine mind, he just wanted to give you the solutions right away to all of your problems that you had. And so he came to understand that, like, holding space for you, and like,
and just being present.
Fascinating.
And it's been like, it's been the saving grace of our relationship, because and I hear this from a lot of women, especially women today, but we can solve problems on our own. Like, women are very, they want to do it, and but we also want to talk about it. And that does increase our oxytocin. We love that. It feels good. It helps us feel like we're connecting when we're talking about it. But in our relationships, sometimes when we do that, especially if we bring a problem, like you said, men think we want them to solve it. They think, oh, she's bringing something to me. How fast can I make it really small and like just solve it? Like, she will love me if I just get rid of this problem as fast as possible. And then the opposite happens. Like, steam comes out of her ear and she's like, why aren't you listening to me? Like, I just want to tell you about it. Why are you trying to fix it? And then they're so confused. And this was me and Adam for years. And before we learned this, I was like, why do we not get taught this? And I saw it in like role models relationships. I see it in all my clients. And when they learn this, the men are like, what? I just need to be present. She just wants me to be present and like deeply listen. And they find it really hard. Like, men will say to me, she just keeps saying I'm not listening. And I'm like, well, are you listening? Like, are you honoring what she's asking? And they're like, no, but it's really hard. Like, they have this primal instinct to like want to fix it, solve it, like, you know, just annihilate it, like get it out of the way, you know. But we're not like an animal that they're hunting in, you know, out in the wild. We're human beings. We have feelings, like we're able to regulate and process things ourselves. So it is something they have to learn. Like, it's a practice of being in the discomfort with them. And it is literally physically there is so much discomfort for a man when a woman comes and just blah, 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 like lets it all out. Like, just that energy, they call it like flooding. It like floods the man's body, and he can feel all the energy, and he just doesn't know what to do with it. He just thinks he needs to fix a problem, and then it goes away, and then he gets the dopamine hit. So they have to learn to allow her to express and like vent, as women love to do, but like have like your skin like Teflon, just let it like run off you, like drip off you like water. You don't have to take it in, you don't have to fix it. If she really is just like telling you a story and she just wants you to listen, you just need to be present in your body. And Adam would have to, and he still has to tell himself, just be present, listen, deeply listen. She doesn't want a solution. She just wants me to listen. And like, he has to tell himself, just listen, because otherwise he will start to try and solve it and interrupt and, you know, try and, you know, make sense of it. And all I want is for him to listen, to be able to hold space for me.
And my favorite thing about hearing you guys together share about this was then you both were like, and it's so hot, it's so sexy, and we just want to make out.
Yeah, it just like, and that's what makes Adam, I think, drives him to do it more and more. He's like, the more I listen, the more she's like really turned on. And she's like, so like, she thinks I'm so masculine and so amazing that I can just sit there and hold it. And then, yeah. And he's like, if I'd known it was this easy, like all those years ago, I would have got it. I would have learned sooner. And it's like, and all the women, all the couples that learn this, they're mind blown. They're just like, it does make such a big difference because we all want to be heard. And the same goes for women. Like, we can get into a pattern of trying to fix our men, like we talked about. So it's learning to hold space in a different way, like I did for my son, like just being really open and allowing him to just talk and talk and talk and not judge him in it, just love him through it, not try and fix it, and just be there. You know, our men need that too, to know, you know, because for men, it is hard to speak their truth. Like, conditionally, they've been told, like, don't show your emotions, don't be weak, don't be, you know, you're going to be strong, don't cry, all this rubbish. Like, and that creates a lot of disconnection in a relationship. So men need women to let them know that they're safe in that as well, that I'm not going to judge you. You know, whatever you say to me, I'm not going to judge you in it. And I used to be terrible at this. Like, I wouldn't always choose Adam's side. Like, when he'd come home from work and say he'd had a stressful day or this had happened at work, I sometimes, with wanting to solve the problem, thinking that I would make it better, I'd offer a solution or a strategy. Like, oh, why don't you try doing it this way? Or why don't you try seeing it from their perspective? And straight away, he's like, he would close and I'd feel it. And now I can see it's like, I wasn't choosing him. I wasn't on his side. I wasn't holding that space of like, just, I'm sorry that you had a day like that. You know, that sucks. I really missed you. And just giving, what he really needed was a hug, you know? And now I know that. Now when he comes home, that's what I meet him with when he comes through the door, and this is something that shows up, with couples as well, when they're both stressed in their day and they both come home and they need different things. One of them wants to tell them about the other day. The other one just wants to empty and escape and forget about the day. And then they clash, with kids in between that as well. And it's like, how can in that moment, can you actually just say what you're feeling? Like connect to your heart. And really what that tends to look like is, for a woman, it's like, I missed you. I really missed you. I've been at home with the kids and it's been like, whoa. But the truth is, the thing I really need to say, which is the hardest thing today, is I missed you. And when you meet a man like that, then he wants to hug you. He wants to come and connect with you. And then he wants to, he'll go and put his stuff down and he might say, look, I just need 10 minutes. Like Adam would say to me, I just need 10 minutes to just switch gears, because for guys, it really is like one box at a time. Like they're in the work box and then they're in the home box. Whereas women, it's all connected. Everything's related. Everything's connected. Men, it is not like that in their brains. They do not work like that. So I needed to learn that, to go tell him I miss him, have a hug, let him go and have his 10 minutes, do some breath work. And then he'd come back out in his body, present, ready to help me with the kids. Whereas we just don't create that space in our lives these days. Like they're just so busy, they're so productive, and then we're so resentful, unhappy in these destructive relationships, not meeting each other's needs. Like it's crazy. And you don't need hours. It's like 5-10 minutes. I mean, God, if we can't give ourselves 5 or 10 minutes in our own lives, our own freaking lives, like, what is the point? Whose life are we living? Like,
it's funny how when you are addicted literally to living in this high cortisol, like on this level of high cortisol, 5 minutes of trying to come down from that with breath work, meditation or whatever can seem so impossible. There's even times recently where I've been like, and I try to do breath work and I'm like halfway through it, I'm like I trying to resist, because it's just like, no, stay in the cortisol, stay in the doing, stay in the productivity, stay busy, even if you're not really doing anything at all. You're just like going with the dopamine.
And it's crazy. I know, and I mean, in the way the world is, it almost wants us to get addicted to that. And this is where, like, I was talking to my husband about this today, because men really struggle with this. I mean, men and women both do, but men really hold on to like ticking off the task. Or if you're a woman in your masculine, it's all about like, if I just get the list done, and we're like holding on to it because it's like, then I've achieved, then I'm enough. Like our values in what we've achieved or what we've done. And it's what I've had to learn how to do is change my association to my value. So my value's in me. My value's in who I am. It's in who I'm bringing. It's in my energy. That's my value. That no one can take that away from me. No one can score that. No one can mess with that. It's me. That it's coming through me. And so, because I was the same, I was brought up on like, I was valued for how productive I was or how much I achieved. But it's so empty. It's so hollow. You always need more. It's never full. It's never enough. I got it. For me, it was always like, I need to do more. I can always do more. And yet, yes, there's always more. But when it's from a place of, I am enough, my value is in me. The value is coming through me. It's not in what I do. It's in me. This is my unique value that I am bringing. No one else can bring this. No one else can bring your unique value. It's within you. It's a total shift. It's like, you can do that. You can achieve that. And in terms of like what that does to your body, to me, it's like getting back to the endorphins. It's like letting go of the dopamine and getting back, because that's what being allows you to do. Being is being pulled, and it allows you to be present. When I was addicted to the dopamine and the doing and the productivity, I was never present. And as a mom and in a relationship, that was just so frustrating. Never being where you are, never feeling like you're fully experiencing it, not even receiving the moment, because you're already in the next one. It's just crazy, like never being where you are. And for me, like that's the greatest like sense of consciousness. It's how present we are. Like that's how I kind of rate my own consciousness. How present am I? How present am I in this moment? How present am I with my kids? And not like a thing of achievement, a thing of like, of value, bringing my value from me. And how do I do that? I be present. That's how I do that. And it is totally different to what we're taught in the world. But to me, it's like the difference between doing and being. And yes, we need to do some things, but we are human beings. There is a lot that we're meant to experience. There's a lot that I feel we're meant to be pulled towards. And for me, that's more sustainable. It brings me peace. Like, I think we all deserve to feel peace within. Like, and the sooner you can feel that peace within, the sooner you'll feel it without, like in your relationships, with your kids, in your life. It really does start with like, how do I come back into my heart? Like, how do I come back into my body? And I do that check-in on the daily, like multiple times a day. I don't just wait for one moment to do breath work. As soon as I start to feel that cortisol in my body, I stop right there and then. And I'm like, and I'm like, whoa, okay. And it normally takes at least 3 breaths to really connect back into my heart, come back into my body. And then I feel it all kind of recalibrating. And I'm like, okay, now we can keep going. But I really check in with my body, and I try to stop as many times a day to do that.
I have a friend who runs workshops on microdosing pleasure. And I love that idea, this whole microdosing. Yes. So myself and a friend were talking about microdosing joy, microdosing play. Yeah. It's just like, see, you just like, and then my friend actually said to me, she's like, Jesus, when you think about it, how we grew up, we've been, and our culture is microdosing fear. So
totally.
It's just like, it's coming at you with the worry and the future and the past and the, like all the media that's thrown at us. And it's really,
I totally resonate with that. And that to me is what soul nourishment is. It's like in every moment, how can I make it look soul nourishing? Or how can I another way that you could put it is, how can I show myself more love? How can this be more joyful? Or whatever emotion you want to experience more of, like joy, love, bliss, pleasure, whatever. Every single thing, all these mundane tasks, that's what motherhood has really taught me. Everything can be beautiful. Everything can be loving. Everything can be fulfilling. It's, we're creating it. We have to really like, you zoom out and be like, okay, I'm actually creating this. Am I feeding the fear or am I feeding the love?
That so much. Yeah.
Like really check in.
This friend who teaches microdosing pleasure, I did one of her courses years ago, and she or they said that when you're getting in your car, for instance, like set it up, you're going on a drive, what music are you going to listen to, what's the temperature like? And often that comes to mind. I jump in the car, I'm going to visit my granny, let's say, and I've already started the drive, and I'm like, shit, I didn't choose my music, and I'm actually too hot with this jacket on. I could have done with it off. And then it's like, do I pull over or do I just keep going? Like, I'll just keep going. And you're like, no, hang on a second, pull over, get the right tunes on, take off your jacket, give yourself a moment. Like, I'm sure, I'm not a mother, but I look after children all the time, I always have. And I'm sure if it was the child, you would do that for the child. And it's like,
do it for you. It's like we've become so serious, and in relationships, this is a problem as well. Like sometimes we'll just get so serious, and it's like, there's no play, there's no fun, there's no love. Like, bring back the playfulness, enjoy the journey. Like for me, I'm like, fall in love with the journey. I know we all have heard that saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. I am like literally fall in love with the journey. the destination's always changing.
Right.
You get there, you
I
move on.
love this because I am looking for a partner, but I am in love with the journey.
Yes,
I'm
I
in love
love
with
that.
I've been like chatting to these guys on Bumble, and it's like some aren't great, some aren't great or whatever, but each time whatever happens, I'm like, oh wow, that's so cool. Like I
Yes.
responded differently, I've grown, I attracted
Oh,
this
I love
kind
that.
of guy, is so different, it's so cool. Then they disappear, I'm like, oh my god, that wasn't for me. And this I really am super in love with the journey, which is
Yes,
so
and
cool.
that's so good. Like enjoying the process. There's a couple of women who've done our relationship program who are single, who wanted to break up with patterns and learn. And one of them has actually got back with an ex, and she messaged me the other day and was like, I just want to, like, I didn't know this was going to happen. She did some dating. She hadn't been dating for a while, but after working with others, she was open to dating again and just living her life again and allowing life to come through her. You know, that's what like enjoying the journey is, or falling in love with the journey. Let life come through me. It's all for me. Whether this works out or not, it's going to lead to where I'm going. Like, just follow the bliss, follow the joy, like, enjoy the experience. And that's what she was doing. And went on a few dates and things, was totally open, but it led her back to her ex. And she said the craziest thing happened. And I had talked about this in the program because this is what I'd noticed with me and Adam. She was like, it's the same person, but it's a completely different relationship. And she just was like, yeah, she was like, honestly, she said, I can't believe it. Should I find myself in moments witnessing how we deal with things, remembering how we used to, and being like, this is crazy. Like, this is the same person. And like, it gave me goosebumps when I got this message from her, because it's exactly what me and Adam experienced. And of course, you're not perfect, so you won't get it right every time, but you get it right that new way enough times and you realize, and you have to celebrate yourself. And that's what she was doing. And I was like, yes, celebrate that, because then you're rewarding yourself for the change. You're rewarding yourself for breaking that pattern. It reinforces that this feels good. I can see how it used to be, and look how we're doing it now, and how quickly we're resolving things. Like she said, things that would have taken like weeks, she wouldn't have been able to forgive. She would have created all these stories. She just went and felt what she needed to feel, and then it was done. It moved, it was gone. And she said, I'm amazing myself. I'm like, she's like blowing her own mind and just being like, wow, it gets to be this easy. It gets to feel this good. It gets to be, it gets to be to this place where we can grow together. This is how we grow together in our relationships. No one needs to be perfect. We just need to be willing to see our own stuff, own our own stuff, tell the truth, be vulnerable about it, and then take responsibility, feel it, change it, make a new decision. Redefine for you what is love.
I love this.
What is unconditional love?
You've actually mentioned a couple of times forgiveness. I'm just like, I'm conscious of the time because we're just like, but I really want to keep talking to you, right?
I know, we talk forever.
So one thing I will, because I've noticed people sharing or asking questions in these chronic pain communities and health communities that are doing this kind of mind body healing, and they say like, well, how important is forgiveness? Like, is that really something you have to do to heal? And I've noticed you mention it a few times, and in my experience, yes, it really
is everything.
And if for me, if I used to hold on to grudges and stonewall people and huff, and that's just what I learned. It's learned behavior. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
But as long as I was doing that, then my cortisol levels are up. I heard some guy who wrote a book about forgiveness say that it's like having many, many airplanes still flying around in your brain. If you're holding grudges and you're holding on to that story and you're holding it up there, so and then to actually just process them. And it's not like, okay, I forgive you, like you're right, I'm wrong, or whatever. Like, you can still be right without having to be right. You can
honestly, without forgiveness, you can't heal. Without forgiveness, you can't move forward. Like, in my relationship with Adam, there has been so much I've had to forgive. I almost feel like that was part of the contract of our relationship. We've spoken about this before. Like I said to him, I almost feel like this whole experience with you has been to teach me forgiveness. And for him, it's been to teach him how to forgive himself. I almost see it as like, this might sound a bit crazy, but like before we get here, it's like we're all these lights, and we're all need different things we need to learn. Some of us have been here before, some haven't. All the lights are just there, and it's like someone goes, I'm going to go back this time and I want to learn forgiveness. And then someone else goes, like, can anybody help me? Like, can anyone help me learn forgiveness this time? And then another soul goes, well, do you know what? I need to learn how to forgive myself. So I will help you learn that, because you can help me learn how to forgive myself. So then maybe they come down and end up in a relationship where one of them hurts them and the other one then has to learn how to forgive them, and then they have to learn to forgive themselves. And then there's this beautiful healing that can happen. I really believe we all have these contracts and lessons that, people become people through other people. So there's these lessons and shifts we need to learn that we can only learn through these relationships with each other if we're open to them. And yes, like you said, we must acknowledge the hurt 100%. You need to validate, everything that's happened in our relationship. I have always validated how I felt. I've always felt all of it, processed it, emotionally let it go through me. I've never dismissed it, never suppressed it or ignored it, because that would not be loving to me. It's not even about my partner. It's about that would not be loving to me. So I do that, and I speak my truth, and I have boundaries and standards, and, let Adam know about, I'm not available for this, or I'm no longer tolerating that. And that's about me. I realize I've been tolerating this behavior. So that's why you're doing it. So I'm going to shift it in me. So it's, again, taking back responsibility. But what I realized about forgiveness in like all my relationships is, if I couldn't forgive, I was only actually really hurting me. So it's like, how I see it is like, I'm holding hot coals and I'm angry at you because you have hurt me, and I'm going to throw the hot coals at you. But when I open my hand, I've burnt a hole in my own hand. I haven't even touched you. So for me, when I think about it like that, I'm like, by holding on to that and not forgiving them, it's not about setting them free. It's about setting me free, and then they just get the gift of that. They're not thinking about me. They're not thinking about the pain. They're not reliving the pain. I am. I'm reliving the story. I'm reliving the pain. I'm the one burning a hole in my own hand, or burning a hole in my heart. And I'm the one holding that energetically in my body. And like, that stored emotional energy that's not processed shows up as sickness, shows up as dis-ease. So you only end up hurting yourself.
Totally.
So to me, I'm like, just switch it. And forgiveness can be more about you. It's more about you, not the other person, and not even the event,
I've heard people say, I know it's like a thing that people say, but like, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And what I say to myself is, would you rather be right or would you rather be healthy?
Yes, yeah. Or would you rather be right or would you rather be loved? To me, I'm like, I choose love every time. We all want to be loved. Like, it's the highest emotion. Like, we're all like, just love me. And I'm like, well, and also for me, I'm like, if I can't forgive you, that's a reflection that I've got trouble forgiving me too.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Right?
Like, it's a mirror. It's like, if you can't forgive somebody else, you really need to check in and realize that also that's from your ego, because your heart has so much capacity to forgive. Like, your heart, it's endless, it's limitless, it's infinite, there is no end. Love just keeps expanding. There's just so much, it's ridiculous. Like, it's infinite. We cannot even fathom it. And I really learned that having my children. So many mums I know, when they've had one child, think, oh, can I really love my second child as much as my first? Like, I've already done it once. It sounds crazy. When, I remember women saying that before I had children. I was like, of course you can. My mum had 5. But then when I became a mum, I was like, oh, this is actually a weird thing that you kind of face off with. And when I had my daughter, I was like so emotional, because I was like, It really is true. Love is infinite. It's endless. It's limitless. There is no end. Like, I feel like I've been cracked open to like even more love. And it literally, I say a cracking open because that's what love feels like. I think so many of us think it's going to be like rainbows and butterflies and daisies and fairy floss. And I'm like, no, it's a cracking open. Love is a cracking open of your heart. That's how it expands. That's how it grows. That's how it is infinite and limitless. You know, when you have children, when you're in a relationship, they will crack you open. Expect to be cracked open because that's how you're going to know that your capacity to love is increasing. That's how you know that. If it didn't crack open, if it didn't hurt a little bit, you wouldn't know that it's actually expanding and growing. And that's true in your intimate relationships. And this is what I think of when I think of forgiveness. I'm like, I feel everything I need to feel in myself, and I forgive myself for maybe not, you know, for putting myself in that situation or putting myself in that pattern. But then I always forgive them because I choose love, you know. And I also, another element of this for me, I'm like, it's not my job to judge. I'm not God. I don't need to make them realize they did wrong or whatever. That's not my job. My job's to love. They're going to realize that. And the sooner I let go, the sooner I forgive, the sooner they have to face that in themselves. You know, the
Literally,
longer I,
that was
hold them
one
captive.
that was one thing a coach said to me a couple of years ago, and she used that phrase, like, you're not God. Like,
Yeah.
so many, everyone kept coming with problems of their partners or their children or their parents or whoever, and she kept saying, you're not God, you're not God. I'm like, oh my God. I totally thought I was God. I thought I had to, like, you know, take on my
And so, I mean,
brothers
so
and
did I.
friends.
Yeah. This saving feeling, you know, and you don't end up saving them. You end up enabling them. You know, that's what happens. So you have to let go. You have to forgive. You have to take that higher perspective and choose love. Like, it just feels so much better, feels so much more wholesome, like, to just choose love and just let it go. It's incredibly healing for us and for the other person. And honestly, I think that's one thing that we could all just really do with doing more of. Like, who do I need to forgive? Who do I need to let go of? You know, is it a past ex? Is it, you know, a parent, a friend? Like, who do I need to forgive? Like, if you want more energy, if you want more life, if you want more love, like, a lot of the time there's something you need to let go of. There's someone you need to forgive, to let go, and just let the healing happen. You know, like, we have to actually open our hearts for healing to happen. You know, when we can't forgive, we're closed. The healing can't happen when we're closed. We need love to heal, you know. Pain just begets more pain. Like, it literally just creates more pain and suffering. So yeah, that's a mantra that really just gets me every time. You know, if my ego wants to come in and it's like, no, we need to hold them captive, I'm like, well, it's not them we're holding captive, it's me. You know, so I want to be free, I want to love, I want to experience love, so I'm going to forgive.
I love this. I've loved this whole entire
Yes,
conversation.
me
We're coming up
too.
to nearly 2 hours, and
I
I'm
know,
like,
we should totally stop.
so
Oh
much
my
more to
God, everyone be
say.
like, shut up.
It's amazing. Choose love. Let your heart crack open. Find someone that you need
Yes,
to forgive. Like, relationships and
yes,
health, it's all one.
all
Just like
connected. Yeah,
changing the feminine,
100%.
changing these generational patterns. So
Mm.
interesting what you said about where they came from men coming home from war.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes total
total
sense.
sense. Yeah, total sense.
My granny was actually a nurse in the war, and my grandma was a doctor. So yeah, it all makes so much sense. So
Yeah,
yeah, so much love. I love you,
amazing.
Aston.
I
We've been
love
on such
you.
a
Thanks for
journey
having
together.
me. I'm
Yeah,
like buzzing. This has just totally lit me up. So thank you
same.
so much. And
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, I'll say goodbye for now, and
yes,
I'll leave all your details in the comments so people can get in touch with you
yes,
and,
beautiful.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll send you the
experience
link of
things.
like the 5-day challenge that we mentioned and stuff like
You,
that. So if
you.
anyone wants to check it out, I'll send you the link and you can have a look. But yeah, yeah, thank you so much for
Yay,
having
lots of
me. I
love.
loved it. Love you lots.
Love you.